For the last 3 days, I've been using Leeds Station to visit various places across the north. But my fourth and final day here, I'm getting a bus instead. And it is regarded as being the most scenic bus ride in England. The 8:40 coastliner service from Leeds to Whitby. It is also one of the country's longest, taking around 3.5 hours to make the full journey.
This is coastline M40 to York and Whitby.
Now I should point out that it's not the most scenic to start off with and very much feels like a regular bus route taking some pretty standard roads, although there are some rather nice views across the countryside as we pass through Tadcaster, which is home to a John Smith's brewery. But once you get to York, there are some bonus points because you get to see some of the typical touristy locations. But at the same time, as you are in the city, it does become a little bit slow and a little bit tedious as well. It almost feels like this route could be 3 separate services, one from Leeds to York, one from York to Malton, and then one from Malton to Whitby, which is very much the actual scenic section of the 840. I was actually in Malton exactly 24 hours earlier whilst on my way to Scarborough, and there is a separate bus route numbered the 843 which has followed us so far since Leeds but branches off here to continue to Scarborough. The 840 to Whitby though is definitely the much more longer route and the more scenic one as well. Passing through Pickering, this is the end of the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, although I failed to spot the station. This used to be a railway line connecting Malton and Whitby, but nowadays only runs as far as here. Once through the quaint little village of Thornton-le-Dale, the scenery really begins as you head up onto the moors themselves, with the most notable view being the whole of Horkham. We then descend down into Goathland, which is a station on the North Yorkshire Moors Railway. The village here is really pretty and did feature in Heartbeat. The station itself has become quite well known as being the location of Hogsmeade Station in the Harry Potter films. I'm now interested what station will be used in the TV show variant. The bus very much loops down to serve Goathland and so has to ascend to continue across the moors and through a couple of final little villages until it finally reaches Whitby.
So I've made it to Whitby, and that is by far the longest bus route I have ever taken. We arrived on time after 3 hours and 43 minutes. That's insane. But if I was to get the train here from Leeds, it would pretty much be the exact same time. And I would much rather pay the fantastic price of just a £3 bus ticket than a £54 train ticket. That's a single at any time, no railcard discount. So what's the verdict then? Is the 840 coastliner really Britain's most scenic bus route? Well, from Thornton-le-Dale to here at Whitby, possibly, but the other 70% of it doesn't total it up to what I might consider to be the most scenic. I feel like if you're going to claim it as that, it's got to be something which is much more scenic throughout the entire journey. Something like the Land's End coaster service or the Needles Breezer on the Isle of Wight. It was a tough old journey as well. It was very hot, there's no air conditioning, so that first half wasn't the best. Second half, absolutely fantastic. And now that I'm here in Whitby, I'm going to spend a couple of hours exploring this seaside destination. So the first location I wanted to visit in Whitby was the Captain Cook Memorial Museum. He is one of the historically significant navigators travelling around the South Pacific in the 1700s, including trips to Australia and New Zealand, and this is where he did his seaman apprenticeship. A trip to Whitby won't be complete, of course, if I don't go and visit the Abbey. Although that does require climbing the iconic 199 steps here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 95, 96, 97, 98, 199. And there it is. I have seen a ruined abbey every single day on this trip, and I'm ending with perhaps the most infamous one of all, Whitby Abbey. And at this point, I feel like it should come as no surprise that Whitby Abbey was another victim of King Henry VIII's dissolution of the monasteries. But this abbey in particular is quite well known for featuring in Bram Stoker's 1897 novel of Dracula. I guess because it has that very gothic appeal to it. I didn't realise there was an admission fee for it, much like Scarborough Castle yesterday. £18 just doesn't seem like it's worth it if I'm just kind of quickly passing through and seeing what Whitby has to offer. So I'm going to descend now back through the town. As always, I'm just very, very happy that I've managed to at least come and see it. You can see the ruins quite well still. Oh yeah, and I haven't even mentioned the River Esk yet. The railway line to Whitby is actually known as the Esk Valley Line, and considering we are at the end of it, it should be no surprise that the river is making its confluence with the sea over there. Despite Whitby being on the Esk Valley Line, some of the North Yorkshire Moors heritage steam trains also come here as well. It is insanely packed though. So many people travelling on the steam railway today. So speaking of the trains, surprisingly, Whitby doesn't actually get that many services. Of course, there are some additional heritage trains, but they kind of run every few hours, which is quite bizarre for a major seaside destination. Because of this, and how I've gotten the bus here and not the train, I've not yet ticked off Whitby station, and rather than wait quite a while for the next train, I've realised that I could actually take a walk to the penultimate station on the line, get the train into Whitby, and then reverse back out on my way towards London. And I get to do that by taking a disused railway, the Cinder Track, which runs between Whitby and Scarborough and closed in 1965, and I think would be a very beneficial railway to have nowadays, because if you were to get the train from Scarborough to Whitby, it would be pretty much just as long as the 8:40 bus, almost 4 hours, which is quite ridiculous. So you would just never do it, you would get the bus now. I do feel like this little quadrant of northeast England did get done a little bit dirty when it came to closed and abandoned railways. Oh wow, the disused railway is even part of National Cycle Route 1 here. So if I stayed on this, it would actually get me all the way back to London. And as always, on a disused railway, you get the telltale signs of an old bridge here. I love all the vines hanging down over the arch, it looks quite cool. This old bridge intrigues me because of how overgrown it looks up there. It always makes me wonder whether this is another disused railway going over our disused railway. Oh wow. Well, there is a real highlight on this disused railway walk, and that is the Larpool Viaduct. I get to walk right over it. So the Larpool Viaduct is crossing over the Esk Valley Line into Whitby. I'm glad I saw a steam train at the station, otherwise this would have been a great spot. And of course, passing over the River Esk as well. But I've just spotted that there is a fantastic view of Whitby Abbey all the way back there. That's incredible. If I don't record out of the window to get a shot of the viaduct when travelling to Whitby later, I'm going to be very annoyed with myself. And immediately after the viaduct, I've come off of the disused railway to walk little country roads to the penultimate station on the line. So I've made it to the penultimate station now at Russop, where I'm just going to head to Whitby and then back. But an original plan was for me to now jump off at Gromont Station, which is usually where you can change for the North Yorkshire Moors Railway. And I planned this trip quite a few months back. I think in the recent timetable change, because of how infrequent services are from Whitby, the next train now no longer connects with the last train back to London for me. So this 4 o'clock service from Whitby is as early as I can leave. But a little ways down the line at Nunthorpe, there are more regular services, so I thought I would instead do the local stations between Nunthorpe and Middlesbrough, and then come out another time, probably base myself at Middlesbrough for a couple of days, because it's an infrequent line, to do the rest of the stations on the Esk Valley line, which will include Gromont, and hopefully some walks on the North Yorkshire Moors as well. But for now, we are just doing the 2 stops at the end of the line. I literally moved seats as soon as I pressed record because I did actually almost forget to take a shot of the viaduct. And there we go, I'm back at Whitby station for the 3rd time today, but at least now I have finally ticked it off. Right, time to go back the other way. Well, that was about an hour and 20 minutes from Whitby. That is quite a lengthy journey along the Esk Valley line. And the first station I'm doing is Gypsy Lane. Well, this is an extraordinarily barren platform. Gypsy Lane only opened in 1976, and I thought there would be more here, considering we're not at some of the more rural stations on this line now. We are basically in the outer suburbs of Middlesbrough. We're actually not too far away from Nunthorpe station. I thought I could walk it because the hourly service from there to Middlesbrough and beyond is only 20 minutes behind. I thought I could probably do the walk between the two in 20 minutes, but I didn't want to rush myself. Plus, I have time to bounce back and take off Nunthorpe later before my train home to London. I mean, there is literally nothing else to say here. This station exists, and that's about it. And just one stop up the line is Marton. Oh, there's an old Northern logo on there, which was called Ormsby until 1982. Yeah, this is another rather barren station, not to be confused with Malton station as well, which we visited yesterday. So I'm actually going to go for a walk up to the next station because they're all quite close along here. I wanted to see something whilst visiting these little stations, so I've decided to come into Stuart Park here, which opened in 1928 and used to be the grounds of an estate. I think it was even called the Ormsby Estate. What I specifically wanted to come and have a look at in here is this, which might feel quite arbitrary, but this granite vase marks the point where Captain James Cook was born here in the estate. In a way, it's worked out better that I'm doing these stations, even though they weren't part of the original plan, because it connects quite well with the Captain Cook Museum that we saw in Whitby earlier on. I'm quite glad that I gave myself the time to wander around here because it's actually really beautiful this evening in the sun. I could have got these stations done a little bit quicker, but nah, take your time with it. It's nice. I quite like totems. And there's even a matching museum here as well to go with the one in Whitby. Oh wow, so this is pretty cool. So in the park here, they've actually labelled some of James Cook's voyages around the Pacific Ocean, New Zealand, up towards Hawaii. That's neat. And the station I've walked to is rather fittingly called James Cook, although I think officially it's called James Cook University Hospital, but none of the signs say the extra bits.
James Cook University Hospital.
And this is the newest one on the line, opening in 2014. It's not the most unique name, so I'm sure there's a James Cook out there somewhere. This is the perfect station for you. And the next stop up the line is Middlesbrough, but I've missed out Nunthorpe, so I'm just going to get that one done quickly and then bounce back to Middlesbrough. It does have a northern station sign. I don't think I've seen at any other stop before, and the display seems to be a little bit confused. It's still showing a Whitby train from almost an hour ago, but the Newcastle train has just gone through, and my Nunthorpe one is in about 20 minutes. So there we go, that's the end of the simple stations on this line, as the additional hourly services terminate here at Nunthorpe. Seems we're on a border here as well. Welcome to Redcar and Cleveland. Is that actually a county? You know, I did wonder whether my train would actually just wait at the station, or whether it would pass through level crossing to some sort of siding. But it's waiting. I guess it makes sense. No point closing the road here. If the train did go through the crossing, I could have shown you how Nunthorpe actually has a sliding level crossing barrier rather than the arm which comes down. I've not actually seen one of them before, but I know that they are quite common in these parts. And to be fair, Nunthorpe's one was only installed here in February. Wow, at this time, no one's at Middlesbrough. To have such a huge station be so quiet and empty, it's quite uncanny. I do find it funny how early Northern announces that we are approaching the next station, to the point sometimes where it's saying it when we're still at the platform of the other one.
Welcome on board this Northern. We're now approaching Gypsy Lane.
And I have now made it to Middlesbrough, with its transporter bridge in the background, which is the world's longest remaining transporter bridge. Although, saying that, I can only think of one other one, and that's in Newport in South Wales. This one's been here since 1911, but since 2019 it has actually been closed. I think it's awaiting repairs. And this is my last station of the day. It feels weird to pass through some new stations without actually getting off at them. I usually do a good job of doing that nowadays, but we will come back and base ourselves at Middlesbrough, give more time to explore it here and visit the rest of the stations on the Esk Valley line, but that will be for another trip, so I will see you then. Thank you for joining me on this epic 4-day adventure. I've really wanted to do one in the northeast for quite some time. We visited so many different places like Knaresborough and Harrogate and Leeds and York and Whitby and Scarborough and Middlesbrough. I always thought there was an O in it. I thought it was Middlesbrough. It's not, it's Middlesbrough. And I will end with listing my favourite and least favourite stations of all of the separate 4 days. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more adventures coming soon. And it's come full circle as I changed trains at York to head back to London, or at least it would have under initial plans, but then I realised, oh, there's direct trains from London to Harrogate, let's catch that instead. And speaking of London, my train home is delayed, but it's one of them weird things where it's the midnight train that for some reason just takes a whole lot longer than it actually should do, so it actually might arrive somewhat on time. Meanwhile, because I didn't want to have such a long wait at York, I've decided to come and climb part of the city walls opposite the station that I didn't get to do 2 days ago. This is pretty cool to do at night time.